Writing Out Loud, a program designed to explore in-depth interviews with writers to hear that words have voices.
Hello everyone, I'm Teresa Miller and welcome to Writing Out Loud. My very special guest today is legendary author S.E. Hinton. This is the second of a two-part interview. Thanks for staying, Susie.
Oh, you're welcome.
When we closed out the last segment, we were talking about the outsiders in the film, and I wonder if those character actors actually changed the way you viewed these people you had written about, like Pony Boy.
No, not at all.
When you think Pony Boy, you don't see Tommy Howe.
No, I absolutely don't. Funny you'd pick Tommy because he was the person that was the least like his character. Rob was very sweet, like soda, and Patrick is very big brotherly.
Mm-hmm.
Matt was, kind of this loner, tough guy, like his character. But Tommy was this smart aleck, totally self-possessed, teenager that was nothing like. I'm not even sure he'd read The Outsiders when he was playing the part. He did a great job,
Mm-hmm.
but. Sometimes I dream about the characters, and sometimes I dream about the actors, but they're never the same person.
Mm. We've been talking about your films. Let's talk about Rumblefish. I love that movie. Do you think it was a little bit ahead of its time?
Oh, definitely. Rumblefish was ahead of its time. For one thing, the soundtrack that Stuart Copeland did, heavy percussion, and it was very, very strange for its time, and I see its influence in movies all the time in the soundtrack. I mean, I'm going like, well, I must be a Stuart Copeland, but it's not. It's somebody that's been influenced by the Stuart Copeland thing, and also the black and white with splashes of color. I mean, you even see that in Gatorade commercials now. So that was very ahead of its time. It's expressing this. I mean, it was art film. Francis made it an art film, and now it's got a cult following. But Francis was one of the few people I've met that really understood the book. Mm-hmm. And while we were shooting Rumblefish, he said, Susie, we get along well. We've got a cast here, we got a crew here. I like Tulsa. Is there anything else you've got I could do while I'm, just go into next? And I said, well, I've got this weird book called Rumblefish, but nobody gets it. And he said, bring me a copy. And I didn't, because I thought he was just being nice to me. He's always really nice to me. And he comes in waving a copy, and he says, I love this book. It's weird. We're going to make it weirder, and we'll shoot it in black and white because the motorcycle boy's colorblind, and we'll put some color in it. And I just said, well, Francis, I promised Matt during the text shoot, he said Rumblefish was his favorite book of mine, and if we ever got a movie going, he wanted to play Rusty James. And then he said, but, if I'm too old to play the motorcycle boy. And then if I'm really old, like, 27, I'll direct. But anyway, I said, well, Francis, I promised Matt he could play Rusty James if I ever got a movie going. He said, he's perfect. That'll be great. So he said, and you and I will write the screenplay on Sundays. Well, we're shooting 6 days a week on The Outsiders, 16 to 18 hours a day. For some reason, Tommy wasn't considered a minor because he was a citizen of Colorado. So they could work him to death, and they almost did. So I'm going like, oh, yeah, we can write this screenplay on Sundays. Like, my one day of the week, I can see my husband. But that's what we did. And within a few weeks, we had a pretty good script. And then, we rewrote it, and within weeks after we wrapped The Outsiders, we were shooting Rumblefish.
Well, it's clearly a Francis Ford Coppola film, and there's that wonderful shot of Tulsa, sort of Tulsa noir.
Yeah, I love it. Yeah, it's definitely Francis's film. I had my fingerprints all over The Outsiders. And also, Tim Hunter was so sweet to me and let me, I was there for everything on text, too. So I see my fingerprints a lot on that movie, but Rumblefish is Francis's movie. There's no doubt about it.
But you've got a cameo in it. Let's watch.
You liked it. Go ahead. What were you saying?
Hey, sweetie, would you like a date, huh?
What were you saying? Go ahead.
I said he told me it was the first time he ever got drunk. And anyway, you see, he left you alone in the house for those 3 days. And we didn't live where we do now. It was a very large house. And, anyway.
Now, this role wasn't typecasting.
No.
How much fun was this?
Well, I thought it might be fun, but actually, you know, we were still shooting with a lot of the same crew as The Outsiders went on to do Rumblefish, and there's like 4 women on the set, and we had, you know, kept running over, so I got to sit around on that hooker outfit for nights with these guys that I'd been around for a long time, and it wasn't all that much fun.
Awkward.
It was a little awkward, and now when first time I didn't see Rumblefish again after my first viewing for about 15 years, and when I saw my part, I realized I had grabbed Vinny Spana, who plays Steve, and had taken him just. You can still see me on camera, but I started unbuttoning his shirt, and I'm going like, I don't remember that. Why was I doing that? Well, you know, I'm just like, oh God. No, it was fairly embarrassing, but other than that, it was a very interesting shoot. It was hard. It's very, very hard. One time we had 2 back-to-back 20-hour days with 4 hours in between. I saw big old grips that were belonged to motorcycle gangs, and they weren't being grips, going to sleep staying against walls. I learned to sleep anywhere. I can sleep on a plane now. I can sleep anywhere. I can sleep in a director's chair. I can sleep laying on the grass. I can sleep standing against a wall because of none of us got any sleep. Francis doesn't need sleep, and he forgets that some of us mortals do need some sleep once in a while. But people were walking around crying. But that hallucinatory effect that the movie has, besides we're breathing in that smoke constantly to give the atmosphere smoke, that you have watching that movie was definitely part of the shoot, because we were all hallucinating by the time it was over. And another thing was it was very, very hot. It's one of our normal, you know, it was still in the 90s all night long. And it was, I think, 70% night shoots. It was just difficult. It was a difficult shoot, and we were watching somebody engineer their own death. And the cast didn't bond like, you know, The Outsiders bond. And I'd promised myself I would not get close to him, except for Matt. I mean, after 2 movies, I was his mom. It didn't.
Yeah, it's Matt Dillon.
Nothing I could do about that. But it was, you know, it was very, very, very strange. I think that shows up in the movie. It helped the movie. And Francis wasn't on the set. He did a lot of directing from his Silverfish trailer, and he would have this big mic come in, and I think he hired Dennis Hopper just to fight with him. And they would fight, and Dennis would get off on some babbling something or other, and here came the voice of God out of the speaker going, Dennis, I've turned off your sound. I can't hear you. So it was like God speaking. But the movie's great. I love the movie.
Oh, I do too. Is it your favorite?
Captures the spirit of the book really, really, really well. Francis understood the mythology. He said, you know, like Midget, that Larry Fishburne, in those days we could call him Larry Fishburne, would always appear like the messenger Hermes, and he always had a little cloud of smoke with him, and as he delivered his messages to Rusty James, and it was really a cool take. I have to mention this, is my son Nick is, you know, not impressed. He's never seen Tex until just a few weeks ago when Tim Hunter was having a retrospective thing in San Francisco. And he comes home one day after seeing Matrix and says, do you know Lawrence Fishburne. And I said, honey, in my day we could call him Larry. And he was like, oh my God. I was just like,
That's wonderful. This is a great form of validation. The perfect form of validation. Tell you what's running through my mind, Susie. Here you were at a pretty young age. What were you, in your 30s when you were doing
early
that?
30s.
Early 30s, doing The Outsiders and Rumblefish. You're surrounded by very intense, powerful people like Frances. This great, wild cast of characters and actors. How have you stayed so grounded? You haven't had any meltdowns.
oh, no. Well, for one thing, I knew they were leaving. It's very hard, and I can understand why most of the crews and stuff plan vacations for right after a shoot, because it's a downer. Because you lose all these people you've bonded with so well. But I never thought movies were my vocation. And I really, really enjoyed the experience. I think I took full advantage of it. The fact that, both directors I worked with really wanted me involved, and I was totally involved, and I made, some really great friends, and of course the boys I bonded with very strongly. I'm still in touch with most of them. But I never had any desire to, move to LA or, try to get, if I had a chance to work on a movie again, I'd jump on it. I'd love it. But it's not something I've actually sought, because I've got a life that I really like.
Well, that's what's really interesting to me, because I know you care deeply about your writing. It's very important for you, but it's not the number one priority in your life.
No, I've always thought of myself as a writer, but I'm a wife, I'm a mother, I'm a best friend. I enjoy, horseback riding. And, if I get a real buzz on again, like I had a buzz writing the Tim stories, and Hawks Harbor was the most fun I've had in years writing something. And if I get a buzz like that, man, I'm going to be on it. But it's not something I feel like I've got to do every day, and I don't feel like I need to validate myself anymore. I mean, I've got a nice body of work. I'm working on is very silly, superficial, paranormal suspense comedy right now, and it's very fun to write, because Tim's story sucked all the depth out of me. I almost didn't pull out of that character. And I enjoy writing it, but, at some point I'm thinking, well, what if this is my last novel, and it's silly and it's superficial? But so, I'm just like, but I can't do anything else right at this moment.
Let's talk about some of Tim's stories, because the last time you were on the show was when Tim's Stories had come out. That was in 2006. You've had time now to reflect on the stories, and I wonder how you see these stories as fitting into your overall body of work, because they're different.
They're the best writing I've ever done. I still say that to anybody that'll listen. Best writing I've ever done. Of course, I usually add, I don't care if you read it, but please buy it.
Oh, it's a wonderful book. Of course, I love it because we worked some together.
Oh,
on it.
yeah. Well, I owe it to you.
No,
But
you
it's
don't
probably-
owe
yes,
it to
I
me.
did.
No. These
I
are
did.
wonderful, wonderful stories. What do you think are the strengths of these stories? What makes them stand out as your best work?
Because they're so concise. They're the closest to poetry I'm ever going to get. And they've got such a rhythm to them. I set myself a goal of 1,000 words per story, and except for one story, I met it. At first, I'd go like, it's 100 and, it's 1,030 words. I can't cut 30 words out of this, but I could. And it gave the story such a good rhythm and such a good little impact. I'd take an emotion, like guilt or love or something, and build the story around an emotion. And I really feel like I succeeded in conveying that emotion to the readers in that short space. So yeah, I'm very proud of the Tim stories.
As accomplished as you are as a writer, I'm always amazed when I hear stories about you're going to writers' groups.
Oh, well.
What are you looking to learn from going to
Well,
a
I
writers'
go
group?
to a writers group, and we meet every Friday. We're the fictional characters that I got to name that.
It's a good name.
Well, and I don't bring writing to the group every week. Matter of fact, I've been pretty dry lately. But I like going, I like hearing other people's work. I like the camaraderie. We have birthday celebrations for different people that have birthdays. And Also, I like listening. We always read other people's work. And especially if we've got plays or screenplays or something, I really like reading. You know, it satisfies your little itch to be an actor. And you do a good job in a cold reading. I find that's a lot of fun. I hate reading stage directions, but sometimes I have to be like everybody else and read a stage direction. But every once in a while I get a really good part. So, no, it's fun. Dave and I have this tradition called Margarita Friday.
David's your husband.
Yes, and on Fridays I go to my writers group. I go to the store and buy something to cook on the grill. We go to a movie, and then we have margaritas, and it's Margarita Friday.
It's a pretty good formula.
Well, if it's a rut, it's a nice rut.
Do you think initially when you first joined this group that the other members were a little bit intimidated by you and your success as a writer?
No, because it first got started with, I took a screenwriting class with Michael Wright, and a couple of the other kids and I got going on a screenplay that we wanted to finish. So he said, well, this summer let's get together and we'll keep reading each other's screenplays, and it'll give us. And so that's how the group began and how it's grown, and people drop in, people drop out. The only thing I intimidate people with is I've got my chair.
Your chair.
My chair in their writing group that's at one end of the table, and I don't care who's there, and they're in my chair. They get up. I'm territorial. One time we had this kid and her mom there looking to, whether she wanted to come to tea. I don't know if she did after I chased her out of my chair. But it turned out she was a fan of The Outsiders. So.
You even took part in a guacamole competition.
Oh, yeah. One of the other members of our longtime group, Sloan, Sloan Davis, and he and I challenged each other to guacamole taste. I mean, we do goofball stuff like that besides talk about our writing and, just hang out. Sometimes nobody shows up with anything. We just catch up.
In other words, you're leading a normal life as a writer. It's not one of these things where you're closeting yourself away and being reclusive like we talked about in the last interview, that you're fully experiencing life and you have lots of interest. Let's talk about your interest in horses.
Okay. I've always been, one of those little girls that doesn't just love horses, wants to be a horse, ran up in the halls whinnying and all that stuff. And of course, my earliest reading was horse stories. My earliest writing was horse stories. And as soon as I could afford one, and people think somehow that I made a ton of money immediately after The Outsiders. My first royalty check from The Outsiders was $12. And in those days, you could get 2 tanks of gas, but it wasn't. So when I was 20,
amazing.
I took my last $75 out of the bank and bought my first horse. He was 4 months old. That was Toyota. Went on to play in Tex, but I've had a horse ever since then. I've got 3 right now. A retired hunter and a trail horse and a Highland pony. So it's been too hot to ride this summer though, but my mother was always, you'd outgrow it, we're not going to get your horse, you'd outgrow it. Every time I swing my leg over, I think, outgrow it, hell.
Well, the Highland pony, Ellie, tell us about her. She's beautiful.
Oh, thank you. I always wanted a Highland pony since I rode one about, must have been 15, 16 years ago in Scotland. We stayed in a bed and breakfast in Loch Ness, and the woman that ran it, besides doing the cooking, did horseback riding lessons and led trail rides up the mountains over at Loch Ness. And she had, Highland ponies, which are, very common in Scotland. And I thought, these are amazing. They're so smart. They're so in tune with people. They're very, very highly people-oriented and easy to communicate. Fun but not nuts. Didn't, not spooks. Galloped all the way up the mountains in Loch Ness and then walked back down in very rocky trail. Her hooves are like iron. I kept thinking, I need one of these. And I guess it was, Ellie's 5 now. 4 years ago, I saw one for sale and just Googled, Highland ponies. There's only about 75 in the United States. So I bought Ellie from a farm in Virginia that raised Highlands, and she's so smart, and she has so much common sense, and she's not going to like, if something kind of like scares her, she's like, I'm not going to waste the energy running away from this. Yeah, let me see what it is. So she's a ton of fun to ride, and she's been on a couple of trail rides. She's absolutely great and very people-oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Matter of fact, she went in her first jumping show a couple of months ago, and it was still cool enough to jump her, and my trainer was riding her, but it was like, never has a problem with the jumps, just jumps right, just not scared of that at all, but, oh, people, these people, they might want to hug me and pet me and give me a treat, so that was, she's a ton of fun, but so Sage, my paint trail horse, and Ritzy, my retired hunter, is like the sweetest animal, and that includes dogs and cats I've ever been around.
You no longer take part in jumping competitions yourself.
No, but I would like to just do some at home, but I don't know.
It's dangerous, isn't it?
Yeah, it's dangerous.
Why did you find it so appealing? Because you were really into it for a while.
I liked the adrenaline rush, but I really did. And I liked the communication with another species because my horses have saved my life on many occasions. If I got to spot wrong, they did something to correct it. So that the interspecies communication is really wonderful, but every once in a while, you really had a zen moment where you were there and you knew what the next stride should be, and you knew how you need to come around the corner for the next jump. And you keep trying for those. I think any sport's like that.
Right,
you
right.
keep trying for that. I still enjoy riding, and I'd love to take up jumping again at some point. Both Sage, my trail horse, and Ellie, my pony, like jumping, like it a lot. So maybe someday I'll just do some low jumps over at home. But I was just thinking the other day in my book, Hawks Harbor, there's a page where Jamie, the main character, realizes he can't swim anymore. And it was something he was really, really good at. And he's physically no longer able to do it. And he has, kind of a little crying fit. And even at the time I was writing it, I thought, this is me in jumping. This is how I can feel this for this character, because this is me and jumping. I can feel it coming.
So as part of your well-rounded life, horses fit into it, of course, family and friends. The Supernaturals. You mentioned that you Twitter about the Supernaturals.
Well, that Supernatural is my favorite TV show. I got hooked on it when it first came out. Matter of fact, I was there for the first episode. I saw the preview in Entertainment Weekly. I thought, oh, that looks like something I'd like. Really, really got hooked on the show. Ended up writing the creator, head writer, head producer, Eric Kripke, my first ever fan letter I've ever written to anybody. And it turned out he's a big fan of mine.
Oh, how cool.
It was cool. And that ended up with me worming my way onto the set, which is in Vancouver, is where they shoot it. And so I go back every year and hang out for a few days and watch them shoot. And it's really, really nice because I'm treated kind of like royalty and kind of like family. Turns out everybody in Canada has read The Outsiders. So I have a lot of fans on the set. I have a lot of fans with the crew, and with the cast. And it's just something I look forward to every year. It's going up and hanging out on Supernatural. They even have my own director's chair now.
Oh, that's great.
That they set up next to the director, so I can watch the video thing as they're filming. It's so much fun.
What is it about the show you think that appeals to you so much?
I've always been interested in the paranormal. I have bookshelves full of paranormal. And for the first season or two, they were basically doing urban legends. And it's about two brothers who are raised by their father to be hunters of evil supernatural. And that hooked me on the show. The brother relationship's great. The two actors, Jensen Ackles and Jared Padalecki, play them, are very, very close friends in real life. And the brother relationship is very strong. And of course, I do male bonding all the time. That's one of my specialties. So I got hooked on that. And then, of course, added the paranormal. And it just appeals. You know, it's just well written. It's well acted. It's fun. And it turns out there's tons of Supernatural fans who are Outsiders fans. So it's just worked out great.
You see any similarities between the two stories, the Outsiders and Supernaturals?
Only in the brothers' relationships, in that their dad was very, very strict, but it turns out and I didn't realize this till I had somebody who was writing a book about the show pointed out to me that the dad was very much like a dairy character. Jensen was like a soda character, and the youngest son, Sam, was Jared plays, was a rebellious character. So it is sort of like the dairy soda pony relationship. So maybe that appealed to me in some subconscious way, because I certainly didn't see it in the beginning, but somebody pointed it out to me. But, you know, it's just fun. It's fun to immerse myself in fandom, which I've never allowed myself to do before. You know, I was a fan of Magnificent Seven. I was a fan of Bonanza. But I never, ever tried or attempted to make any kind of contact.
Right.
This is my first contact, and it turns out I'm a welcome contact. And they like it seemingly like it as much as I do. So it's just been a blast.
Susie, thanks so much for being here.
Oh, you're welcome.
Do we dare say it? Stay gold?
Oh, yes. You can't say that too much.
I can't say it. Thank you so much for being here, Susie.
You're welcome.
And thank all of you for joining us on Writing Out Loud.